Hello, everybody. I'm back with an Infinite Layers. We haven't done one of these in a couple of weeks, so it's cool to be back. And I'm here with an OG from the EigenLayer ecosystem, Liam. He's done a lot, and we've, I would say, worked together or just chatted about a lot of the different products that he's worked on over the last couple of years. I believe we first met maybe in Singapore in person, token almost 2 years ago. So it's
Yeah,
cool
that's
to,
right.
cool to be chatting with you again. So to kind of kick things off, we're going to be talking about area ultimately, but we're also going to be talking about a lot of the other stuff you've been doing. So I guess, do you want to give us a quick intro?
Yeah, for sure. So, hello everyone. Very excited to be here, Nader. I think really appreciate the opportunity, obviously, and yeah. So I've been sort of originally, I guess, really long time been focusing on sort of the idea of verifiable services, and obviously, I was the co-founder and chief product officer at Blaz and still is, which is ultimately a sort of a formation of verifiable service platform, right? And so basically been sort of drenched in the idea or concept of verifiable service for about, I say 4.5 years now. Really stemming from sort of the good old concept of, layer ones and layer twos can't really fulfill all of the utility and needs from the sort of the demands of the developers or any use cases, as we've seen these days. And just kind of like going from there, right? And about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I sort of met with Sriram and obviously get to know about what you guys are doing at EigenCloud, now it's called. And I kind of just immediately hooked, right? Because kind of like two of the main problems that we were facing, obviously one major part of it is the infrastructure side of things. So all of the developer experience, SDKs, like the templates, how to build the definition of what is a verifiable service, right? But more importantly, sort of the economic side of it. I think that's what is ultimately, as we've seen in the past, how kind of like how the EigenLayer flywheel got kicked off, right? I think that's majorly contributing to the economic part of it. And I was before mostly focusing on the tech and then realizing how powerful the economic side of it is. That really kind of draws me into the ecosystem. I was like, I want to do something about it. And the first thing, obviously, is, from a very sort of practical standpoint, where do I track all of these things? Like where are the data? How can I track these things? And back then there was literally nothing. So we built I hacked together initially a sort of dashboard called EigenExplore, and immediately got lots of demand from within the EigenLayer ecosystem, right? Lots of people also curious about, exactly what's going on within the ecosystem. What's the TVL? Who are the AVSs? Who are the operators? And exactly like the different parties that's kind of like make everything work, right? So EigenExplorer being sort of this public goods that we've developed and shipped. Now it's been like about 2 years or a year and a half at least running this, and we've learned incredibly lot from the experience of simply running EigenExplorer to aggregate all of these data. Because I think a lot of what people don't understand is EigenLayer, the protocol is primitives, right? It provides this different components, economic components, slashing, right, rewards distribution, now with redistribution, redistribution of the staking capital, right? All of these are individual components that people or developer, they can integrate into the software stack, the verifiable service stack, right? But for the layman or for people who are actually interested in the economic side of it, it's really, really hard to piece everything together. I think that kind of like becomes the theme for all of the stuff that I've been doing, especially within the EigenLayer ecosystem, is how to simplify things for the user, how people to make sense of everything for the user while not like overly abstracting away all of the finer details, right? Because I think the balance here is really, really important. for people to understand what exactly is going on, but also empower them to have the agency or to have the intent to express, which we can talk more about it, which is kind of like the market side of the entire economic architecture of the verifiable services, right? So, but to kind of fast forward a little bit, now I'm essentially what we're running. Our major focus is in area, which is area.club is the URL or address. Essentially, what area is a direct restaking protocol, right? What that means is it basically creates a stock market for AVSs, right? Previously on EigenLayer or currently on EigenLayer app, your experience is essentially you go to a operator, right? Operator are basically your agent to decide which AVSs your capital will be allocated towards. It's usually the problem over here is that the operators are kind of far away from the users, right? Whether it's a institutional user or kind of like a retail user, they have always been sort of at the back end, right? It's usually what they provide is kind of like this white glove service, and those are not highly sort of advertised towards the end user. Why? What's the difference between one sort of operator and the other, right? Or the other option for the user these days are simply LRTs, right? Which is kind of like an ETF or a wrapper around everything that EigenLayer does. That includes pretty much they wraps around all of the AVSs, and they make decisions into who are the operators and how much capital we'll allocate into each AVS. So the user essentially gets this sort of literally like decision-free experience, right? They just go to one LRT provider, they give them the ETH, and that's it, right? They leave it alone. For me, with the sort of background into the verifiable service, I've always believed that the verifiable services are the core of everything, right? They're kind of like the magic of the entire ecosystem, right? And we can talk about why I think that way. But I do believe there are big differences between each individual verifiable services. There's ZK, there's obviously there's data DA layers, right? And there's all kinds of different interesting stuff. And we have CAP, which is essentially a DeFi with restaking as kind of like the insurance component. Each individual AVSs are so different that I think people are actually, at least for me, right? I'm only speaking for myself. I want something that allows me to choose directly the AVSs and give AVSs exposure, kind of like bring these verifiable services to the front stage and let people directly interact with them. I think that's kind of like ultimately what becomes Area today, a marketplace for people to pick AVSs and directly restake into the AVSs, while sort of some of the medium level abstractions are getting taken care of. For example, picking the operator or picking the highest strategy, right? Strategy meaning picking the whatever token you can supply to that AVS. Yeah.
And at the core of all this is kind of like data, and you've done a great job of working with data since like day one with the Eigen Explorer, which was essentially you building out like a really nice indexing and API product, I guess you could say, on top of the EigenLayer core protocol. And then like at first you launched that and people were using it and they were using it for various reasons. But ultimately, okay, we have all this great data. You know how to work with the data. You also understand the EigenLayer ecosystem better than a lot of people because you, like you said, just by building that, you've learned so much. And how do we kind of like make this into a more valuable like product? And you've kind of built out, I guess, like Area is kind of like the evolution of that. And it would be cool. Is there a way for us to kind of like get a view of that on stream? Or I mean, like, what's the current status of it? Is it live for anyone to use, or is it in beta? Or
yeah, so right now we're in public beta, actually private beta, sorry, which means that for everybody listening, if you want to try it out, we have a special code for you to enter called Genesis, Genesis. The reason why we have this sort of gate is essentially still want to make sure everybody, make sure the experience is the best for everybody, right? And I love to actually share or show you what it looks like. Let me.
Yeah, you should be able to share your screen.
I think that really speaks more than whatever I say here.
Yeah, I think so too. And one thing I'll always note whenever I'm looking at any of the stuff that you all build, you all kind of have like a really good knack for design and UX and polish, and everything that you've put out has been really, really great. So let's see here. Okay, yeah, it looks like we can see your screen now.
Yeah, so basically our idea is to how to create an app store for the verifiable services, right? I think that's kind of like the experience I want. I want to know like what are the verifiable services running on EigenLayer. I want to know what are their APYs, right? How much I'll get in terms of rewards, right? And I want to know what is their business, right? I want to know whether they're sort of secure computation, whether they're EigenDA for data availability, right, or ZK, right? And I want to see, how many sort of maybe they're in their own group, right, or something like that. So this is something that we've essentially thinking from the whiteboard and sort of like from the first principle, exactly how we want to allow our users to sort of engage in the restaking experience, because technically they don't need to know about the operator from the initial view, right? The first site is all about verifiable services, and I think that's kind of like extremely important in terms of the entire tone and the user experience that we want to present to the user. And in terms of the core product, right? If we think about it, I think really the core product is the APY. I think these days it's very, very hard to understand, especially if you go to EigenLayer platform, right? EigenLayer app, or if you go to the LRTs, it's really hard to realize or understand exactly what goes into these APY and why the APY is like that. And we've spent a lot of effort in quantifying and in calculating and in making sure these APYs are accurate, right? In calculating these APYs, I think there are actually multiple sort of backend layers that gets involved, because when an AVS gets designed and gets built, there are multiple factors that goes into the APY calculation. There's the operator fee, there's the different accepted token, right, that can be used. Then there's the EigenLayer incentives, and there's obviously the AVS rewards, right? So what we've done essentially is sort of breaking down these APYs into these components and quantify it so that the user are able to understand, okay, these are the estimation of the APYs I'm getting for each AVS. And after you've picked an AVS, you obviously can go then take a look into the details. But I think the elegance of, so what we want to achieve is after a user, maybe they've seen a lot about EigenDA and they're really excited about it, right? What they can do is directly click deposit. And essentially, I don't currently actually have Eigen in this wallet, but essentially what you do is you just type in how much Eigen you want to deposit. And after you click deposit, that will be it, right? That's the end of the experience. And the funds or the capital will be automatically allocated to all of the operators that are currently in the EigenDA operator set, so that you actually don't get exposed to the sort of single point of failure, right? Traditionally, if you only opt into one operator, that's kind of like you are kind of naturally exposed to the single point of failure problem if, say, the slashing gets live, right? So what we've done is essentially distribute these capital into different operators so that make sure you get the highest APY and in the same time gets the lowest sort of single point of failure exposure across the different operators. And this also, from the other perspective, the operators also enjoy, sort of smaller operators also enjoy more sort of capital allocation as well, right? So this is kind of like the entire experience. From the user's perspective, I think that's, we started off with the user's perspective, and we really do believe that, this whole experience is, can't speak for everybody, but at least something I want. From the market perspective, I think this also becomes really, really important because ultimately, right now, the TVL are still sort of shared TVL, but after we sort of get more traction or get more TVL into area platform, what we can actually do is display what we call the direct TVL, right? Then you'll see a more accurate ranking of sort of how the market values each individual AVSs. I think that's incredibly important because right now, these AVSs, so we have, I would say, 40 something AVSs in total. And one thing that I've always hear people say or like experience it myself is that I really can't differentiate a lot from different AVSs apart from the sort of their names, right? They have similar TVL values, they have similar APY values because a lot of them comes from eigen incentives and the base ETH liquid staking APYs, right? So how do we actually incentivize these AVSs to provide more benefits to the restakers and to the operators? And I do believe that we have to introduce some type of market component or some type of competition into the ecosystem so that, when some, for example, if EigenDA attracts, 10 billion of TVL while other AVSs attracts sort of 500 million direct TVL, then the other 500 million direct TVL AVS will have more incentive to say, I want to provide more rewards so that my TVL is at an optimal level, right? Yeah, I think that will really create a sort of the positive flywheel effect and network effects that pushes more sort of AVSs to join the ecosystem. And ultimately, I think that's the goal, right? I think whatever I've written an article before, I think the magic of verifiable services is you can really crank up the scale of however many verifiable services that are out there, right? I think that's kind of like the magic pill that at least personally I'm hoping for, because with verifiable services, you can really achieve sort of thousands or even tens of thousands level different projects running as a verifiable services instead of like for layer one, maybe it's at the, like maybe dozens level, right? And with layer two, maybe you're looking at maybe 100 layer twos. But with verifiable services, what I'm hoping is in the next 5 years or even 10 years, we can see thousands of verifiable services and even 10,000s of verifiable services. And Area essentially is building so that people will be able to discover these and effectively allocate different economic security towards these verifiable services.
No, I think so. I have a few comments and questions, but I think in general, though, one of the things that we're doing on our end to kind of also help facilitate and accelerate that vision of like having, instead of dozens or hundreds, actually having thousands or tens of, focus on developer experience. Because I think if you look at the challenge of writing just some regular code and deploying it to AWS Lambda, that's one thing, right? That's kind of like a developer experience. Writing code and kind of orchestrating and understanding how to manage like backend infrastructure on the cloud with maybe EC2 or even dealing with like Kubernetes. You kind of have these like layers of abstraction or control, and it becomes like more complex, but you can do more, right? And I think like just like the AWS cloud has built various different entry points into building cloud services, like our approach is the same. Like we have this low level infrastructure, people can build AVSs and control everything. Now we're going to start layering things on top just to make it much easier. So ultimately we want to make it as easy to build an AVS as it is to just write a smart contract, or even just write a few lines of code, make it even easier potentially, or let's just say as easy for sure as a smart contract. But at that point, you know, we will see more.
Yeah, I want to highlight, since Nader, you mentioned AWS, right? One of the core thing that always sort of resonates inside my mind is I'm not too sure if you heard of it, the AWS ecosystem projects, or so-called ecosystem project called Anti-Metal, which is essentially the economic sort of optimizer for any of the AWS workloads, right? So what it does is essentially, you know, for AWS, obviously a very traditional experience. You have an account, you deploy a bunch of different workloads or your app to a server, right? But what Anti-Metal does is essentially helping you to optimize your spending on top of the AWS platform. And from some perspective, I think what we are doing for Area is exactly the same, right? Because each and individual AVSs ultimately will decide how much I want to spend to service my network, right? And how much economic security I need to service my network, right? And there exists some type of market dynamics or market forces to push the prices up and down, right? And I think essentially what we're trying to do is be the anti-metal for EigenLayer that helps these AVSs, maybe not from sort of like a optimization standpoint, but from a market standpoint, with more sort of liquidity coming into each different AVSs, or directing liquidity to each individual AVSs will help these AVSs to find the best price for their economic security. And I think that'll be extremely interesting and tremendously helpful for these AVSs to get onboarded, not only from the sort of engineering or development perspective, but also, you know, like I said, it's kind of like a dual problem set, right? One is the engineering side of it, the other is the economic side of it.
So if someone, so is this platform built directly on the EigenLayer protocol, or do you have infrastructure that sits in between it?
Yeah, so great question. So what we want to do right now, the entire platform uses the EigenLayer components, smart contracts, essentially. So everything that you see here, the restaking actions, actually flows directly through EigenLayer. But we do have different sets of middleware, like oracles for price fetching, allocators to allocate users' capital towards different operators, right? These type of components are right now at the current moment sort of hosted by us. But what we are doing, or what we're thinking ahead, is we want to actually package these into an AVS, right? Because it only makes sense for us to dog fooding the entire stack ourselves. But more importantly, I think, you know, all of the values that you see here on the page, the APY, you know, the operators, the operator allocations, they actually could benefit tremendously from being verifiable for the user. And what it creates is a more sort of robust tokenomics for Area as well, where all of the revenue for the Area platform can become rewards for the Area restakers, right, and operators. And I think that's kind of like only more healthy as a protocol, because essentially what we want to do is create sort of a feedback loop that's sort of that kind of like builds on top of each other and create this network effect, right? And I think what we want to do is essentially also be an example, and, you know, say as a DeFi protocol, right, we can actually try to become more decentralized. We can actually try to become more responsible towards sort of the crypto ethos, while at the same time having a reward distribution mechanism and economic security layer where sort of the whole thing becomes more robust as a whole, right? And that's something that we've currently working and are incredibly exciting to push forward on.
But I guess for a TLDR, like you could almost essentially describe this as just like a much more polished user interface on top of the eigenlayer like restaking protocol for coming in and like visualizing and seeing what's out there, looking at the yield, and your like main focus in terms of like I would say getting people to start using it is just that it will provide a like number one a better UX. That's the way I take it.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate goal is so that people find it so easy to use that they can't stop using it, right? And from these individual AVSs, you'll be able to construct your own portfolio, right? You can restake into for example, if we're just using ZK as an example, you're incredibly interested in ZK networks, and you just restake into all three of the ZK networks, which are really, really, at the best of whatever sort of the entire ZK industry are representing, right? Align, Lagrange, Brevis, I believe these three are excellent examples of, a very promising ZK protocols. And what you can do is simply restake into each of them and construct your own ZK portfolio, right? So that's something that you'll be able to do. And what you get after you deposit is actually a liquid token that you'll be able to trade in. Sort of you're able to provide in other DeFi activities, and we're also working with other sort of strategy custodians and other DeFi protocols to create interesting use cases. Maybe some sort of vault strategy, they want to create sort of ZK vaults, right? And they'll be easily to do it within Area. On top of this interface, the UI that we've built, everything underneath is developer ready with APIs ready to be used, right? So not only we want to try to cater to sort of the retail users or sort of the institutions who are mostly rely on the interfaces to visualize everything, but another part of it is also these days more and more everything sort of a lot more funds or a lot more restakers are interested in doing things automatically, and they'll be able to do it easily via our APIs as well.
Awesome. So I guess what's the plan on, going live, public timeline and all of that stuff?
Yeah, great question. So right now what we're doing is sort of just testing out the product and inviting sort of big allocators into the platform and try it out, right? Let us know the problems, let us know the issues if there are any. And obviously a lot of the premises that we've designed are based on our beliefs, right? We think this is something that we want to use, and this is something that we think the market want, but that still requires validation. Before hopping on the stream, Nader, you mentioned that one important thing for EigenCloud going forward is not only to focus on sort of the token side of it, but also to have the revenue kind of generating capabilities. And I think that's kind of like the same for us. We want to be really traditional in terms of how a DeFi protocol can be the sort of new type of financial services. So in the early days, we really want to find our sort of initial 1,000 customers and service them really, really well to the full length, right? So after we feel confident about our product and we've seen enough we've sort of polished out the rough edges. I believe there are still some rough edges here and there, although I think the UI UX are already top tier. Then there will be a public launch, and along with our token and possibly our AVS as well. So it'll kind of like become the entire self-feeding or dog-feeding loop that we hope to create.
Awesome. That sounds really exciting. I'm looking forward to staying on top of all that and maybe using it for sure.
Yeah,
and
100%.
here
I'd
to
love
learn.
for you to try it out, and for everybody listening, I guess if you guys are interested to try it out, use the code Genesis. You'll be able to get in, and it's on mainnet, so you can already use it to the full length.
So I think if someone wants to use that code, we need to know the URL, because I don't think you all have the URL available on your Twitter at the moment.
Yeah, so the URL is area.club, area.club. So we don't have a landing page. The app is the app. We believe sort of just having you to try out the app and you'll know what we're talking about. And we appreciate any feedback. So let us know, DM us, and reach out to us if you have any suggestions, any improvements. And yeah, so super excited about this.
And the code is just Genesis, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, perfect. Okay, awesome. So anything that you want to wrap up with for anyone, watching, like, I guess maybe socials, like how to keep up with what you all are doing, and maybe keep up with yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So follow us on X, which is area.club, spelled out AREADLTCLUB. That is our Twitter handle. And myself, I'm on Twitter, Velvety underscore CC, BELVETY underscore CC. And we also have a separate Eigen Explorer account that you can follow for more sort of technical data related posts. But yeah, we're online pretty much every day, and send us a DM if you want to try out the product, or have questions about the product. We're happy to help out in any way possible.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I just dropped the two different handles there as well, if anyone wants to check it out on the screen. Okay, cool. Well, thanks again for your time. It was really good to catch up. Hopefully we get to see each other sometime again soon, either like here or in person.
Yeah, likewise. Really appreciate the opportunity, Nader, and hopefully, yeah, have a great day, I guess, for you and for everybody else. And I'll catch up with everyone soon.
Later.
Yeah, peace.